Howdy and welcome back to Wild West Deep Dives. We're going to do something a little different today. Coming off our recent series on Annie Oakley, I'm going to tell the story of one of their dogs. Frank Butler wrote a book titled The Life of Dave, as told by himself. It's a short story of his life from his perspective, and I thought it would be a fun little episode. But I will warn you, it is his full life, from when Frank picked him up to his death. Now I talk about people dying in shootouts, from accidents, but man, I struggle when I talk about dogs, so I just wanted to give everyone a heads up, but it's still a fun book. Dave lived one heck of a life, hunting, admiring Frank and Annie, doing tricks, and obviously getting into a little bit of trouble, as every good boy does. Well, let's get into it, shall we? My name's Steven, and welcome to Wild West Deep Dives. I often heard my friends and admirers say, "I wish you could talk, so you could tell us what you were thinking about." I suppose they meant well, but I always got along very nicely without talking, and from my own observations, I find that many people get in trouble by talking too much. Anyway, I got along very well, for I could always understand my master and my mistress. I never had any trouble in making them understand me when I wanted anything. I've been told many times that I was quite a celebrity. My master and mistress have shown me my pictures in papers, and I have seen myself in the movies. Many nice ladies said I was a handsome dog, and I guess I was. But I always felt better pleased when they said I was a good dog. Not that I deserve any credit for being good, my master and mistress were always so kind to me that I could not have been otherwise. And now that I am getting on in years and not hunting anymore, I find time hangs heavy. So I've decided to write my life and dedicate it to my many friends. I know many dogs look back to their puppy days as the happiest hours of their lives. I would gladly forget mine if I could do so. My earliest recollection is that I was one of several dogs, some small like myself, which I heard a man say were my brothers and sisters. No one had to tell me who my mother was. Instinct told me that, and while she was a good mother to all of us, I could see that she favored me. She certainly was a beautiful dog, and won prizes on the bench at many shows. I never saw my father, but heard he was a field trial winner. His name was California Bellboy, and I often heard people say that I looked like him. We all romped and played together, quarreled and made up again, the same as I often seen children do. Our kennel was none too clean, and our food none too plentiful, but we were a happy lot and growing bigger every day. One night a man came in, and after looking us over, took one away in a basket. That happened several times until only my mother and myself were left. I heard my master say he would never sell me or my mother, so I was happy with her, but lonesome. Until one day another dog was put in with us. I heard my master call him Chick. He was a very nice fellow, and we soon became good friends. One day, a man put him in a car and took him away, and again I was very lonesome, for I was no longer a little puppy, and my mother paid little if any attention to me now. One day, my master came to the shed where my mother and I were penned up. He had another man with him, who examined me very closely, patting my head, and said, "He will do." Then I knew I had been sold and had a new master, and also that I was going to like him. And when he said, "Come on, Dave," I followed him to a wagon and jumped in. As it was getting dark and cold, I got down beside him and he covered me up with a blanket. I heard my new master say we had a 12-mile drive. As this was my first trip away from my so-called home, I was glad to get away. Little did I think then that I was to have many homes, but one master and mistress only. When we arrived at our destination, my master put me in a stall in a stable with a pointer named Frank. We had plenty of clean straw and room enough for several more dogs. A little later my master came back and brought us our supper. This being my first meal that day, it sure did taste good. I found Frank a very companionable fellow. He said he didn't belong to my master, but wished he did, as he received better treatment than at his own home. The next morning my master came in early and told us we were going hunting and had 10 miles to drive, so Frank and I got into the wagon. Then I met my new mistress for the first time. She spoke to me so kindly and gently while patting my head and rubbing my ears, that I knew then I would love her and would always do so. When we arrived at the hunting grounds, we were turned loose. Frank had several years of training. I had never been hunting and didn't know what was required of me. So naturally I made some mistakes, but my master didn't whip me, but gave me to understand I must do as he wanted and not as I wanted to do. A little later, Frank came to a point, and when a quail got up, I was surprised to see my mistress bring it down. I wanted to get that bird and bring it to her, but Frank got it. Instead of bringing it to her, he dropped it down in a muskrat hole, where he left it and went on hunting. I went to the hole, and after much routing and digging, I got the bird, brought it to my mistress, and when she patted my head and said, "Good boy, Dave," I was a proud dog. We had lunch under a big tree. Frank and I had a biscuit each, so we were ready for the afternoon. It was then that I met with a mishap that came near losing my new home. Birds were scarce, and I was getting way ahead of Frank hunting by himself in a piece of woods. When I saw what I thought was my master's hunting wagon going along the road, the horse was the same color, and there was a woman and a man in the wagon. I felt sure it was my master and mistress, and I ran for miles behind it, hoping they would take me in. But when they turned into a house and got out, I found it wasn't them, and I was a very tired and broken-hearted dog, for I didn't want to lose the first real friends I ever had. My old master told me when I was a puppy that if I ever got lost, to go back to the place where I last saw him. So I made my way best I could to the place where we had lunch. It was after dark when I got to the place. After resting a short time, I tried to get my bearing and started to find the town where I had slept the night before, and that I had seen only once. It was dark and raining very hard. I got off the road twice, but found my mistake before going very far. After several hours of hard traveling, I saw lights and knew I was coming to a town, and was glad to find out it was the right one. It took me some time to locate the stable. I finally found it and was thinking of the warm straw bed, but when I tried to get in, the door was shut. Frank heard me and barked, which cheered me up some. I was cold, wet, and hungry. I finally found a wagon in an open shed and got in the wagon, where my master found me in the morning when he brought Frank his breakfast. I was glad to see him, and I know he was glad to see me. He brought me to see my mistress in the room at the hotel. She rubbed me dry with towels while my master got some breakfast. Then she combed the briars out of my hair and rubbed something on my feet, as they were very sore. I heard her say that I had fleas, so my master got something that didn't smell very good and put it in a tub of warm water. This would kill the insects that might be on me. Then my mistress gave me the first real bath I ever had, after which she wrapped me up in a blanket and I slept for several hours without scratching, something I had never done before. Then my master took me out for a walk, but we had only gone a short distance when I saw Chick coming out of a house. He saw me at the same time. My, it seemed good to see him again. He joined us and we had a fine time. He told me he had a nice home and a good master. When he found out where I was living, he came to see me several times every day, for he, like myself, made few friends among dogs, and we found it hard to keep from fighting with some of the town mongrels. We were bird dogs, not fighters, but when we had to fight, we stuck together, and they soon learned to leave us alone. Chick and I had many hunting days together, and we were staunch friends for years. While hunting with my master, he spent many hours teaching me what I should and what I shouldn't do, and I tried to understand his every wish. When I made mistakes, he didn't whip me, but tried to show me my mistakes. When I did what he wished me to do, he always showed he was pleased by calling me in, patting my head, and stroking my ears. When I was not hunting, my mistress spent hours in training me to what I should do. She told me a good dog should be a gentleman in the house as well as in the field. She was so sweet, patient, and gentle that I couldn't help loving her, and tried hard to make her understand that I wanted to please her. I lived with them in a hotel, had my own rug in a corner of the bathroom, and I had made up my mind that the life of a dog with such a master and mistress was not so bad. One day my mistress called my master in and told me she wanted me to do the tricks she had taught me. I jumped, retrieved eggs she had hidden, got up in a chair, bowed my head, and many other things, which was a surprise to my master, as he didn't know she had been teaching me. One day when I was hunting with my master, I started to cross a road, when an automobile came around a corner going very fast. I didn't see it until it struck me on the shoulder and threw me in a ditch. The driver didn't stop. My master saw it all and I can see him run across the field and fire a shot. Then he came and picked me up saying, If I had buckshot, I would have stopped him. Anyone who wouldn't stop after doing that to a dog would have kept on going if it had been a child. I felt sore all over, and I couldn't walk. But my master carried me back to the wagon. He let me lay on his overcoat on the way home. Then my mistress bathed my shoulder in hot water, but it was a long time before I could do any more hunting, and my shoulder never did get well. I also had one broken rib that never mended. Sometime after my accident, the owners of bird dogs got up what they called a field trial, which was a meeting of all the bird dogs. Each one was to show what he could do by finding and handling birds. There were prizes for the 3 best dogs. I heard my master say I came from field trial stock, and if my shoulder wouldn't go back on me, I would win. There were 27 dogs entered. I went into the finals, and had my right leg and shoulder held out, I could have won the first prize. But I had to be satisfied with the third, which my master said was fine, and that I was a game dog, as I had ran the race on 3 legs. My master and mistress had just finished a new home a few miles from town. It was on the banks of a beautiful river, surrounded by fields and trees, so we all moved there and we liked it very much. Here I was taught to be a watchdog at night, and also to keep an eye on the tramps by day. Chick found out where I was, and came to see me quite often. He spent the night with me, and we slept in the garage. We had good beds. The window was left open so we could see or hear if any prowlers came around. But I heard a neighbor say my mistress was such a good shot that no one would trouble us. We were all very happy until my mistress was taken sick and went away. My master told me she had gone to the hospital to have an operation. I missed her very much. One day, my master asked if I wanted to see my mistress. I jumped, rolled over, and barked to let him know I did. So we got in an automobile and went to a big building, then up to a room where my mistress was laying in bed. There was a woman dressed in white sitting beside her. When I saw my mistress, I forgot my manners and jumped up on the bed, something I had never done before or after. She didn't scold me, but let me lick her hands and face. Then I knew I was forgiven. A few days later she came home, and once more we were all happy. One night, I saw my master getting his gun and hunting clothes out of the closet. He saw I was interested and told me we were going hunting. Early next morning, a man came with a team in a hunting wagon, and we all got in. Then I saw a pointer that I had never met before. At first, he wasn't very social, so I paid no attention to him, but lay down close to my master's feet. Later, when we started hunting, he became very friendly and I found he was well trained, so we had a nice day's hunting. Birds were scarce and we covered a lot of ground. Late in the afternoon, our masters decided to start home, as we had had a long way to go and it was getting cold. I saw a marsh that looked like a good place to find birds, so I went there and soon found myself in a water hole that I didn't see until too late. My master dried me as best he could before putting me in the wagon, covered me up with some straw and a piece of sacking, but I was very cold on the way home. My mistress rubbed me with towels, covering me up, and I went to sleep. But not for long. I could hardly breathe and felt sore all over. I heard my mistress say it was pneumonia, and she worked over me all night. I was a very sick dog for 3 days. I know I would have died if it had not been for my dear mistress. I made up my mind then that the life they had saved would be dedicated to them. We all spent a pleasant winter in the Maryland home. As it was very cold, my mistress moved my bed into the house. Each night we had a big open fire, and as I had run of the house, I also had my share of the fire. My master and mistress would tell me about dogs that they had owned, and my mistress showed me some pictures. Tears would come to her eyes, so I know they must have been good dogs. When spring came, robins and bluebirds came also, and I could hear the bobwhite calling close by. But my master told me not to hunt them, because they were raising families and must not be disturbed. That summer my master and mistress had planted a fine garden. The robins were living high on the strawberries, and I wanted to drive them away. But my mistress said, "No, Dave, let them alone. Their songs will more than pay for all they eat." One day, while my master and I were sitting on the porch, some young quail came out of a nearby field onto the lawn. I had caught the scent before I had seen them, and came to a point, but the master said, "No, Dave, we will wait until they grow big." That was the day when my master and mistress entertained the children. She shot for them and then I would do all my stunts. I always loved little children and did my best to please them. My master told them stories, then refreshments were served and they all wanted to divide with me. I got more than my share. Summer found me still at the Maryland home. The weather was very hot, but there was a very nice river in front of the house and a nice sandy beach where I could swim to my heart's content. Chick continued to come see me, and my master would throw sticks into the water for us to retrieve. I had located a few coveys of quail and was wondering how long it would be before my master would take his gun and let me show him where to find them. But I never had a chance to do so. My mistress told me one day, "We are going south for the winter." I was put in a new crate, had plenty of fresh straw for a bed, and a can of fresh water to drink. That was one thing my master and mistress would see to, that their dogs always had plenty of fresh water. No one but a dog who has to go without water can appreciate what that means. I was locked in my crate and then put on a train. My master told me we were going to Florida. Of course, I didn't know how far that was and felt very much worried, as it was my first trip in a crate, but felt better when my master came to the baggage car sometime during the night. He brought me a nice bone which he said my mistress sent me. Next morning my mistress came in to see me, and as we had to stop a short time, she took me out on a leash and gave me a nice run and more fresh water. When we arrived in Florida a day later, I found it very hot and also found that a dog had some things to annoy him that were not very pleasant. Fleas, ticks, and red bugs were plentiful. We had a very bad hotel, and we missed the comforts we were accustomed to. I had my own rug and slept in the bathroom. We hunted 4 days a week and had good sport. But my shoulder and right leg went back on me again, so that I can only go hunting about 3 days a week, and then I can only hunt about 4 hours. About twice a week I was dipped in something that didn't smell very nice. It must have been good, for it kept the fleas off. One day I heard my master shoot, and went to see what he fired at. I found he had killed a rattlesnake. He made me understand what it was and that I must never go close to one, and I never did. Another day I heard my mistress scream and shoot. I was working on some birds at the time, but ran back to see what had happened, and found she had killed a big rattler. He had struck at her and she didn't have time to put the gun to her shoulder, so she fired from her hip and cut his head off. I'd often seen her shoot that way when she was giving expeditions. This snake measured 7 feet 4 inches. My master and mistress killed 5 others that season, when we were all glad when the hunting season was over, and we longed to get back to our Maryland home. I spent a quiet summer. There was nothing for me to do but bask in the sunshine when I was cold and lie under a shade tree when I was hot. When fall came, I heard my master say we were going south. I was sorry to hear that, as I thought we were going back to Florida, and I was pleased to find out we were going to North Carolina instead. So trunks were packed, my crate was filled with straw, and once more I was loaded into a baggage car and we started south, arriving at Pinehurst the next day. After giving me a run, my master put me in a kennel. There was a name printed on the door of my room. I heard my master read it. He looked at me and said, "That name is California Bellboy the First. He was your grandsire. At one time he was owned by the man who owns about all of Pinehurst now." I knew I was going to like this place. Everyone was so nice to me. A few days later I met the manager of the hotel and did a few stunts for him and his friends. Then he told my mistress I was too nice a dog to stay in a kennel. So my mistress put my rug in the bathroom, and for 7 winters that was my home. I was the only dog allowed in the hotel, and I am sure I never abused that privilege. Although there were more than 500 rooms, I could always find my own. I made a lot of friends. Everyone was so kind to me, and now I look back and know that the most pleasant part of my life was spent at Pinehurst. My mistress gave several shooting expeditions while we were there. She had taught me to hold an apple on my head while she shot it off. When she shot the apple, I always managed to catch the biggest piece before it got to the ground. We always had a large audience, and my stunts seemed to please them, and I know it pleased my master and mistress, so I felt well repaid for any risk run by me in holding the apple, which was little if any, as I had full confidence in my mistress's marksmanship. During my first 2 winters there, I had many days in the field. Hunting was good and it was nice country to hunt over, plenty of water, and no burrs or briars. On account of my lame shoulder, I could only hunt a few hours and every second day, and my master and mistress decided not to hunt me anymore. By that time, I knew where there were several coveys, and so in the morning, when I saw my master stealing out with his hunting coat and gun, I would wait until he was started. Then I started to find some birds alone. I hunted and ran wild all day, stayed out until dark, then came limping home wet and tired. My mistress didn't whip me, just asked me wasn't I ashamed, and I was. Then she washed and combed me. Next 2 days I was so sore and stiff I could hardly walk, and I promised I would not go self-hunting again. But in less than a week I ran away again, and continued to do so. I was always laid up for days after I had run away. I was never very far from home, as there were several coveys near town that were never hunted, so I had no trouble in finding them. My master and mistress scolded me, but never whipped me, although I know that I deserved to have been punished. I heard my master say, "It is the call of the wild, he can't help it." But one day when I stayed out later than usual, my mistress lost her patience and told me that if I ran away again, she would surely whip me. I could tell by her looks that she meant it, and it was some weeks before I ran away again. When I came back late, I didn't go near the hotel. The manager had a cottage nearby, so I went there instead. I had done most of my hunting in the swamp that day, and I must have been a sorry-looking dog. I was not surprised when they wouldn't let me in, but I had finally convinced them that I was not a tramp dog, so they opened the door far enough to let me see. Then I heard the lady say, "It's Dave. He's been hunting again and is afraid to go home." The manager went to the phone, and I heard him say, "Dave is here. If you promise not to whip him, I will bring him home." They brought me back to the hotel. My master and mistress didn't scold me, but I know they felt hurt. I was sorry, and promised myself I wouldn't run away again, and it was a long time before I did do so. Summer came again. We all went to New Hampshire. I had heard a lot of talk about war, but couldn't understand what it all meant. My master and mistress tried to tell me, but I could not then or now understand why one half of the world should try to kill the other half. Every day soldiers with guns were marching and training, while cannons roared and shook the earth. I heard my master and mistress talking it over. My mistress said, "Dave, we will have to work for Uncle Sam. I know you are an English settler, but you are an American dog. You will have to do your share." So for 2 summers my mistress worked in the cantonments, where she gave expeditions for the soldiers, in all which I took part. I also worked for the Red Cross, and earned a lot of money for them. People would let me get the cent of a bill, and then hide it. If I found it, it went to the Red Cross. I never missed finding, and was told that I had earned $1,629 that way. While working in the cantonments, I always slept with my mistress in the YWCA building, while the master slept in the YMCA building. We were all treated fine while there, but I never knew there were so many guns and soldiers. I was a proud dog when I was allowed to do my bit. My master received some nice letters from the war officials and commanders of the different cantonments, in which I had received honorable mention. At the finish of our engagement, we again started for North Carolina. We were glad to get back there. My master had bought a new hunting dog named Fred. He had been running in field trials and was very fast. We soon became very good friends, and I liked him very much, as he was a high-class, well-bred, and well-behaved dog. I was sorry when my master sold him, but I understood he was too fast for that country. Later, my master showed me a pointer puppy that was given him. He was very small and timid, so I was nice to him and let him play with me. Now he is a fine, strong fellow and a very good bird dog. We traveled together many miles, and I spent 2 weeks with him at Meadowbrook Kennels, while my master and mistress were away on a business trip. I have hunted with him, but he is young and strong, while I am getting along in years, so I can't keep up with him. My master and mistress say I am a better retriever than he is, as I find the dead birds, which gives me a good day's sport. I suppose dogs and people run very much alike. I know during my travels I have met all kinds of dogs, good, bad, and very bad. My master tells me, however, that humans are the same. They also told me I could save a lot of trouble by minding my own business, which I tried to do. But many times when I had little curs running and snapping at my feet, I found it very hard to live up to it. But I knew it would not be my credit to whip some poor little mutt because he had no brains. There was one kind of a dog my master always cautioned me not to trust. That was the so-called police dog, really the German Shepherd dog, whose owners found were worth more money by changing their name and nationality. They are part wolf, cowardly, and treacherous, always ready to jump on a small dog and bite the hand that feeds them. There was one down where I was one winter, and I had often seen him, but I had always kept my eye on him and he let me alone. It seems that he made friends of the part Airedale mutt. They had shoot up several small dogs and killed one. Neither my master or I heard of this. One morning when I was having my walk, they both jumped me. Either one of them was much larger than I was. By the time my master caught up, I was badly chewed, but I had the satisfaction of chasing the police dog into his own house. My mistress spent several weeks doctoring my wounds. A short time after, the German dog bit his mistress and he was sent away. Summer again, so we left for the north. We all spent several months on a Long Island horse ranch. The owner, his wife, and 3 daughters were delightful people. There were several horses on the ranch. I spent hours there every day and had lots of fun pointing pigeons. Everyone was so kind to all of us, and we knew we were welcome, and I felt at home. The dear little girls were so kind to me. I often dream about them and wonder if we will ever meet again. If not, dear Dorothy, sweet Paula, and Dancy Carey will always hold a place in my memory. As my master and mistress had some business in New York City, we spent a few months there. To me, it seemed years. I, for one, don't envy any dog that lives there. Everyone I met there was either wearing a muzzle or on a leash. We were fortunate in living on the Riverside Drive. I soon made friends with the policemen there, and they were very nice to me, and I had some few privileges that the other dogs did not have, but I was glad when we left New York. I can readily understand why dogs go so mad there. Evenings I could see my master and mistress working over mats, making plans for the winter, and when I found we were not going back to North Carolina, I was sorry, but my master told me my mistress needed a change of climate, and we were again going to Florida. I was sorry to hear this, as I had not forgotten my other trip there, and was not very keen on going back, but of course, it was to help my mistress and I was satisfied. Lad joined me in Philadelphia, and we started by boat to Florida. As our crates were together, my master came and took us on deck every day. We had a very nice trip to Jacksonville. There I was put on a train, while my master and mistress went on to an automobile. My master told us he would see us that night, and I was disappointed when I didn't see him that night or the next. Someone opened our crates and let us out, but the place was very dirty and we were soon covered with fleas. 2 days later my master came and we were glad to see him. He looked tired and was very sad. He patted us both and told me my mistress had been hurt badly in an automobile accident and that she was in a hospital 100 miles from where we were. Next day my master and I left for the hospital, but we couldn't take Lad along. There was no place to keep him. We were sorry to leave him and my master told him he would come after him, which he did 7 weeks later, only to find him eaten up with fleas and manged. It was late at night when we got to the hospital, but I wanted to see my mistress and I was sure she wanted to see me. But we were glad to see each other, but she looked very feeble and could only put one hand to stroke my head. By putting my feet on a chair, I managed to get close enough to lick her ear. My master and I had a nice clean room across from the hospital. He told me all about the accident. I was allowed to go into the hospital every day and spent several hours with my mistress. I didn't like the nurses there, as they seemed rough and hurt my mistress when they moved her. We spent several weeks there and my mistress could sit up again. We all moved over to the place Lad was when my mistress was able to sit up. But he was glad to see us. My master worked on him for a week before he got cured of the mange. Then when he was washed, he was alright and we could go out and play together. He went hunting many times with my master. I didn't go on an all-day hunt, as the weather was very hot and I couldn't stand it. But my master did take me out evenings near the town, where I could find a few birds without working too hard. My mistress could now move around by using crutches, and she brushed and combed me every day. But no dog can keep free of fleas in Florida. No matter how hard my mistress tried, they would get into my hair. She was always so gentle and careful in combing and brushing me that I enjoyed having it done. I often wondered if any dog had a mistress so good and gentle as mine. The hunting season is now ended, and Lad has been sent north to his Meadowbrook home. I went with my master to see him off, and I miss him very much. I could always tell when it was Saturday, because it was my bath day. And I know today is Sunday, as I can hear the church bells ringing. My mistress has given me a brushing and combing. It is a grand day, and as my master is waiting for me, I am anxious to get out. Dave, the beautiful setter dog, owned by Frank E. Butler and his wife Annie Oakley Butler, their faithful, loving companion for nearly 10 years. was killed by an automobile at Leesburg, Florida, February 25, 1923. He worked through the cantonments for 16 weeks, doing his part for his country, and bringing sunshine to the hearts of thousands of dear boys who now, like the faithful dog, lie beneath the green sward, but whose spirits live on. Dave was more than some humans. He sat for weeks watching faithfully by the bedside of his mistress and would snuggle close, tapping gently with a little paw. His big eyes burning with love would say, "Yes, I know, but cheer up, I am here." He awaits us both in the happy hunting ground. His memory is one of the sweetest we have ever known. Annie Oakley Butler, Frank E. Butler. Dave lived a full life, deeply loved by Annie and Frank. For 10 faithful years, he was by their side through every journey, sharing in their joys and hardships. He wasn't just a companion, he was family, and his steady presence will be forever remembered. Going forward, we are going to go back to the era of the Mountain Man. Our next deep dive series, which I'm hoping to have done soon, will be on Joseph Lafayette Meek, the greenhorn turned fur trapper that would go on to have a huge impact in the creation of the state of Oregon. If you enjoy Wild West Deep Dives, please give a rating and a review. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give a like and maybe subscribe. It goes a long ways in helping this podcast grow. We will see y'all next time. When in doubt, shoot straight, shoot fast. God bless.